Pregnant and alone, she warms herself with a tattered blanket until a millionaire appears out of nowhere and changes everything. Jennifer felt the contractions coming closer as she huddled under the worn-out blanket she'd found in the trash 3 days earlier. The 8-month pregnancy weighed heavily on her tired body, and the January chill in Chicago cut through the cracked walls of the abandoned building where she'd taken refuge. That's when she heard footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. Her heart raced with fear. Had the security guard finally discovered she was there? She tried to make herself even smaller, pulling the brown blanket over her head, but the footsteps stopped right in front of the slightly open door to the small office where she was hiding. "Is someone there?" a man's voice asked carefully. Jennifer held her breath, hoping he would leave, but instead, she heard the door being pushed open slowly. "My God," the man murmured when he saw her curled up in the corner. She lifted her eyes and saw a man in a dark suit, around 50 years old, looking at her with a mix of surprise and concern. His hair was neatly combed, and he wore an expensive watch on his wrist. Clearly someone with money. "Please don't kick me out," Jennifer whispered, clutching the blanket to her chest. "I have nowhere to go." The man crouched in front of her, keeping a respectful distance. "My name is Richard Thompson. Are you okay? It looks like you need medical help." Jennifer shook her head, suspicious. In her experience, rich men who offered help always wanted something in return. "I'm fine. I just need to rest a little, and then I'll leave." Richard noticed how she trembled despite the blanket covering her. Her hands were swollen, and there were deep, dark circles under her brown eyes. "When was the last time you ate something?" "Yesterday," Jennifer lied. In truth, it had been 2 days since she'd managed to scrounge some leftovers from a bakery. "And how far along are you?" 8 months, she replied, instinctively placing a hand on her belly. Richard felt his chest tighten. The situation brought back painful memories he'd tried to bury for years. "I'll call an ambulance," he said, pulling out his phone. "No." Jennifer struggled to stand, leaning against the wall. "I don't want to go to the hospital. I have no money, nothing. You don't need to worry about that right now. What matters is your health and the baby's." "You don't understand," she said, her voice bitter. "People like me don't get help for free. There's always a price." Richard put his phone away and stayed silent for a moment. He understood that distrust better than she realized. "I understand more than you think," he finally said. "But I can promise I don't want anything in return. I just want to make sure you and the baby are safe." Jennifer studied him carefully. There was something in his voice, a sadness she recognized, but still she couldn't bring herself to fully trust him. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." Richard sighed and sat on the dusty wooden floor, staining his expensive suit. "Because I've seen this before, and because not helping when I should have was the biggest mistake of my life." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now continuing, Jennifer felt a stronger contraction and doubled over, clutching her belly. Richard stood up immediately. "Does this happen often?" "Sometimes," she admitted, trying to hide the pain. "How long have you been on the streets?" 3 weeks, Jennifer replied, and for the first time her voice wavered slightly. Richard sensed there was a story behind that answer, but didn't want to press. "Look, I understand your distrust, I really do. But you need urgent medical attention. If not for yourself, then for your baby." Jennifer placed both hands on her belly, feeling the child's movements inside. As much as she distrusted this man, she knew he was right. For days, she had felt something wasn't right. "If I go to the hospital, they'll want to know where I live, who the father is, a bunch of things I can't answer. We'll figure that out later. What matters now is your health." Jennifer looked at Richard for a long moment. There was something about him that inspired reluctant trust. Maybe it was the way he had sat on the dirty ground beside her, not caring about his expensive clothes getting ruined. "All right," she finally said, "but I'll pay you back. I don't want to owe anyone any favors." Richard nodded, though he knew he wouldn't charge her a thing. The ride to the hospital was silent. Jennifer curled up in the seat of Richard's luxurious car, still clutching her blanket. She had never been in such an expensive car before, and it only deepened her feeling of not belonging in that world. "What do you do for work?" Richard asked, trying to break the ice. "I used to be a cleaner," she replied without looking at him, "until I got fired." "Why were you fired?" Jennifer hesitated. The truth was, she had been let go because her constant morning sickness made her miss too much work. "Medical absences," she said simply. Richard nodded, understanding there was more to the story than she was willing to share right now. At the hospital, Richard insisted on staying with her through all the tests. The doctor who examined her, Dr. Miller, didn't hide his concern after reviewing the results. "Mrs. Jennifer Miller," she answered quickly, making up a last name. "Mrs. Miller, you're dehydrated and malnourished. This could cause serious problems for the baby. You need to be admitted for observation." "I can't stay here," Jennifer said, panicking. "I can't afford it." Richard stepped closer to the bed. "Doctor, I'll cover the costs." Jennifer turned to him, annoyed. "I already said I don't want your charity." "It's not charity," Richard replied calmly. "It's human help, and you can pay me back when you're able." The doctor explained that without hospitalization and proper care, both Jennifer and the baby were at serious risk. Reluctantly, she agreed to stay overnight for observation. Throughout the night, Richard remained in the chair beside her bed. Jennifer woke several times and found him there, sometimes reading papers, other times just staring out the window. "Why are you doing this?" she asked one of those times. Richard took a moment to answer. "Because I lost someone once by not doing enough, and I don't want that to happen again." "Who did you lose?" "My daughter." His voice grew rough. "She was pregnant when I lost her." Jennifer felt something stir in her chest. There was real pain in this man's voice, a pain she recognized. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Richard just nodded, not trusting his voice to say more. The next morning, the doctor said Jennifer could be discharged but needed complete rest and proper nutrition. "Where will you stay?" Richard asked as they walked down the hospital hallway. "I'll figure it out," she replied, knowing she'd go back to the abandoned building. "I have a proposal," Richard said, stopping. "I have a small apartment I use as an office. It's empty most of the time. You can stay there until the baby's born." "In exchange for what?" "Nothing. Just take care of yourself and the baby." Jennifer studied him, searching for signs of deceit or ulterior motives, but all she saw was sincerity and a deep sadness. "And after the baby's born?" "We'll talk then, but right now, what matters is your health." Jennifer looked at the old blanket she still held in her hands. It was all she owned in the world. Maybe it was time to accept help, even if it hurt her pride. "Okay," she finally said, "but it's temporary, and I'll pay you back." The apartment was small but cozy, nothing like Jennifer had expected. It was in downtown Chicago, in an old but well-kept building. There was one bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and a bathroom, simple but clean and safe. "The fridge is stocked," Richard said, showing her around, "and here's the emergency number in case you need anything." Jennifer nodded, still feeling out of place in this new environment. "I'll let you rest," he said, heading for the door. "I'll stop by tomorrow to check on you." After he left, Jennifer sat on the couch and finally let the tears fall. It had been weeks since she'd felt this safe, but along with the relief came suspicion. In her experience, nothing in life was free. For the first few days, Richard would come by in the late afternoon, bringing food and asking how she was doing. Jennifer kept their conversations short and practical. She thanked him for the help, but made it clear this was temporary. Richard respected her space and never pushed for longer talks. But Jennifer noticed he observed every detail, whether she had eaten, if she looked more rested, if her hands weren't as swollen anymore. One afternoon he arrived with shopping bags. "What's this?" Jennifer asked. "Clothes for the baby and a few things you might need." Jennifer looked inside the bags and saw onesies, diapers, soft blankets, all new and good quality. "I didn't ask for this," she said, pushing the bags back. "I know, but the baby will need them." "Richard, I told you I don't want charity. It makes me feel like I owe you something." "You don't owe me anything," he said firmly. "This is a gift for the baby." Jennifer felt her eyes well up. No one had ever bought anything for her child before he was even born. "Why are you doing this?" she asked for what felt like the 1,000th time. Richard sat in the armchair across from the couch where she was sitting. "Can I tell you a story?" Jennifer nodded. "My daughter's name was Emily. She got pregnant at 20. Her boyfriend ran off when he found out, and He paused, as if the words were hard to say. "I pressured her to take him back. I thought it would be better for her and the baby." "What happened?" "He came back, but not out of love. He came back because I offered him money. And right after the baby was born, he disappeared again, took the money and left Emily alone with a newborn." Jennifer's heart clenched. "Emily tried to raise her son alone, but depression took over. I was always traveling for work, thinking money would fix everything. I sent checks, paid for nannies, but I was never really there. What happened to her? One day she called me crying, saying she couldn't do it anymore, that she needed help. I was in an important meeting and told her I'd call her back." Richard's voice trembled. "She was gone that same night, took her son with her." Jennifer swallowed hard, understanding the pain in his eyes. "Did they die?" "No. She ran away, left town, changed her name, disappeared. I hired detectives, but I never found them. My grandson is 5 now, and I've never watched him grow." "Richard, I failed as a father," he continued. "When I should have given love and support, I gave money and judgment. When I should have been there, I was working. When she needed me most, I wasn't available." Tears streamed down Jennifer's face. His story echoed her own experiences of abandonment and loneliness. "That's why you're helping me." "Not exactly," said Richard. "I'm helping because it's the right thing to do. But yes, also because I need to try to make up for the mistake I made with my daughter." "You can't use my situation to ease your guilt," said Jennifer, though without anger in her voice. "I know," he admitted, "and that's not what I'm trying to do. Or at least I hope it isn't." They fell silent for a few minutes. Jennifer looked at the bags of baby clothes. "All right," she finally said. "I'll accept the things for the baby. But I want you to write down how much you spent. One day, I'll pay you back." Richard smiled sadly. "If that'll make you feel better, I'll keep track." In the weeks that followed, a tentative trust began to form between them. Jennifer started sharing small details about her life. How she'd been orphaned at 16, how she'd struggled to finish school while working, how she'd met the baby's father. "He seemed different at first," she said one afternoon as she folded the tiny baby clothes. "Attentive, caring. He said he wanted to build a family with me." "And what changed?" "When I told him I was pregnant, he accused me of lying about taking birth control, said I'd set a trap to tie him down." "Had you lied?" "No," her voice grew firm. "I took it religiously, but sometimes medication fails. I tried to explain, but he wouldn't listen." "What about your family?" Jennifer stayed quiet for a long moment. "My adoptive mother kicked me out when she found out I was pregnant, said I was just like my birth mother, irresponsible and shameless." Richard felt anger toward this woman he didn't even know. She was wrong. "Maybe not," Jennifer said with a shrug. "Maybe I am irresponsible. After all, here I am, pregnant with no way to support a child." "Being in a tough situation doesn't make you irresponsible," Richard said firmly. "Sometimes life puts us in circumstances we didn't choose." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now continuing. It was around this time that problems began to arise. First, there was a strange phone call in the middle of the night. Richard answered, but there was only silence before the caller hung up. "Who was it?" Jennifer asked, woken by the noise. "Private number, probably a wrong number." But the next day it happened again, and the day after that. "I think someone's looking for you," Richard said, concerned. "Impossible," Jennifer replied. "No one knows where I am." But she was wrong. The next afternoon, while Richard was at work, someone knocked on the apartment door. Jennifer hesitated before answering. When she finally did, she found a woman in her 50s, well-dressed but with a stern expression. "You must be the tramp taking advantage of Richard's kindness," the woman said bluntly. "Excuse me, who are you?" "I'm Elizabeth Thompson, Richard's ex-wife, and I'm here to have a talk with you." Jennifer's stomach twisted. Ex-wife. Richard had never mentioned being divorced. "What do you want?" "I want you to stop exploiting my ex-husband's guilt. I know exactly what you're doing. You don't know anything about me." Elizabeth stepped inside uninvited, glancing around as if appraising the property. "I know you're one of those women who pretend to be in trouble to get money from rich, guilty men. Richard's been vulnerable ever since Emily disappeared." "Emily was your daughter too." "Stepdaughter," Elizabeth corrected coldly. "And I warned Richard back then that he was being too lenient with her. Women need to learn to face the consequences of their actions." Jennifer felt anger rising in her chest. "You have no right to come here and insult me." "I certainly do. Richard and I still have business together, even after the divorce. And I won't allow some opportunist to destroy everything we built." "I'm not destroying anything. Richard helped me when I needed it, that's all." "Oh, really? Then why don't you go to a public shelter? Why do you need to stay in his apartment, using his things, eating the food he pays for?" Every word from Elizabeth hit Jennifer like a punch, because deep down she asked herself the same questions. "I'll pay everything back." "With what money?" Elizabeth laughed scornfully. "You're an unemployed pregnant housekeeper. Even if you got a job, it would take years to pay back what you've already spent." "You need to leave," Jennifer said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'll go, but I'll leave you with this. Richard lost his daughter because of his own impulsiveness. Don't let him make the same mistake with you, because when the novelty wears off, when he realizes you're just another opportunist, he'll abandon you too, and then you'll find out how much harder the fall is from higher up." Elizabeth headed for the door, but stopped before leaving. "Oh, and one more thing. Your baby's father reached out to me. He regrets it and wants to come back. I offered to mediate a conversation between you. Think about it. Maybe it's better to be with someone from your own social class." With those words, Elizabeth left, leaving Jennifer alone with her tormented thoughts. When Richard arrived that night, he found Jennifer sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. "What happened?" Jennifer told him about Elizabeth's visit, every poisonous word the woman had said. Richard visibly bristled. "Elizabeth had no right to come here and bother you." "But she's right, isn't she?" Jennifer asked. "I'm taking advantage of your guilt." "That's not true." "How can you be sure? Maybe I'm exactly what she said, an opportunist." Richard knelt in front of the couch, taking Jennifer's hands. "Look at me," he said. "I know opportunists. I've dealt with them my whole life in business. You're not an opportunist. You're a strong woman going through a tough time." Elizabeth said my baby's father wants to come back. Richard felt something tighten in his chest, but tried not to show it. "And how do you feel about that?" "I don't know," Jennifer admitted. "Part of me always wished he'd change his mind, that he'd take responsibility." "And the other part?" "The other part is scared. Scared it's another lie. Scared he'll disappear when things get hard." Richard let go of her hands and sat in the armchair. "I think you should talk to him." "Really?" "Really. He's the baby's father. If there's even a small chance you could build a family together, you should try." Jennifer studied him carefully. There was something in his voice that didn't match his words. "What if I talk to him and decide to give him a chance? Then I'll be happy for you and the baby." "Richard, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you never remarry after the divorce?" Richard took a long time to answer. "Because after Emily disappeared, I realized I didn't know how to love someone properly, how to be present, how to put the people who matter first." "And has that changed?" "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe. These last few months taking care of you have made me rethink a lot of things." Jennifer felt her heart race. There was something in the way he looked at her that made her feel special, protected, but it also scared her. "Richard, I can't be your second chance to do things right. I can't be your way to make up for what happened with Emily." "I know," he said, but avoided her gaze. That night, neither of them slept much. Jennifer kept thinking about Elizabeth's words and the possibility that the baby's father had truly changed. Richard was lost in thought about how it would feel to see her leave, how it would be to return to the empty life he had before meeting her. The next day, Elizabeth called to arrange a meeting between Jennifer and the baby's father. They would meet at a cafe downtown. "Do you want me to come with you?" Richard offered. "No," Jennifer replied. "I think I need to do this alone." "All right, but call me if you need anything." Jennifer arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. She chose a table in the back where she could see the entrance. Her heart raced and she felt the baby moving restlessly inside her. When Tyler arrived, Jennifer barely recognized him. He was thinner, his hair longer, and he wore simple clothes, nothing like the successful man she had once known. "Jen," he said, sitting across from her, You look beautiful." Jennifer didn't respond. She waited for him to continue. "I know I have a lot to explain," Tyler went on. "I know I acted like a coward. That's one way to put it. When you told me about the pregnancy, I panicked. I wasn't ready to be a father. I was afraid I'd ruin everything, just like my dad did with me. So you chose to leave before even trying. It was a mistake," he admitted. "The biggest mistake of my life." Jennifer glanced at his hands. The expensive graduation ring he always wore was gone. "What happened to you, Tyler? You seem different." "I lost my job 3 months after you left my life. The company found out I was embezzling money to cover gambling debts." Jennifer's eyes widened. Tyler had never mentioned gambling problems. "Gambling? Online poker, sports betting, casinos. It started as fun and turned into an addiction. By the time you got pregnant, I owed over $50,000. That's why you ran." "Partly. I thought if I took responsibility, you'd find out about the debts and I'd have to admit I was broke." Jennifer felt a mix of anger and pity. "And now, did you fix your problems?" "I'm trying. I'm in therapy, going to support groups. I got a job as a salesman. It's not much, but it's honest. Why come back now?" Tyler took a deep breath before answering. "Because I found out you were living on the streets. A mutual acquaintance told me, and I couldn't live knowing my child might be born into that because of me." "How did you know I was on the streets?" "I tracked down your adoptive mother. She told me she kicked you out when she found out about the pregnancy." Jennifer's stomach twisted. Her mother had talked to Tyler about her. What else did she say? That you were always irresponsible, that she tried to raise you right, but you never learned, that the pregnancy was just more proof you were no good. "And you believed her?" "No," Tyler said firmly, "because I know you, Jen. You're many things, but irresponsible isn't one of them." Jennifer's eyes welled up. It was the first time in months someone connected to her past had defended her. "Tyler, even if you've changed, even if you're sincere now, how can I trust you? You abandoned me when I needed support the most." "You can't trust me," he admitted. "Not yet, but I can prove I've changed. I can be here, help however I can, take responsibility. You know I'm living with another man? Elizabeth told me, said he's been helping you. And that doesn't bother you?" Tyler was quiet for a moment. "It does," he finally said, "but I don't have the right to be bothered. You're carrying my child and I left you. If this man is taking care of you when I should have been, then all I can do is be grateful to him." Jennifer was surprised by the maturity in his answer. "What do you want from me, Tyler?" "I want a chance to be a father. I want to help raise our child. I want to try to build a family with you, if you'll let me. And if I don't, then at least I want to be present in my child's life. Pay child support, see them on weekends, be the father mine never was." Jennifer looked down at her belly, feeling the baby move. "I need to think about this. How much time do you need?" "I don't know. Maybe weeks, maybe months." "Jen, can I ask you for something?" "What?" "Don't make your decision based on what happened between us in the past. Think about what's best for our child." Jennifer nodded and stood up to leave. "Jen," Tyler called out as she was almost at the door. "I love you, I always have. I know I messed everything up, but I wanted you to know." Jennifer left the cafe with her head spinning. The whole way back to the apartment, she replayed the conversation in her mind. Tyler seemed sincere, remorseful, but was that enough? When she got home, she found Richard sitting at the kitchen table, typing on his laptop. "How did it go?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Confusing," Jennifer admitted, sitting in the chair beside him. Richard closed the laptop and gave her his full attention. "Do you want to talk about it?" Jennifer told him everything, about her conversation with Tyler, about how he'd changed, about his request to try building a family. "What do you think?" Richard asked when she finished. "I think he's sincere, that he really has changed, but I'm also scared." "Scared of what?" "That it's too late, that I've changed too and can't love him the way I used to." Richard's heart raced, but he kept his voice steady. "Why do you think you've changed?" Jennifer looked at him, really looked, as if seeing him for the first time. "Because these months living here, being cared for by you, have shown me what it's like to be treated with respect and kindness without expecting anything in return. They've shown me what it feels like to be safe with someone." "Jen..." "No," she interrupted. "Let me finish. I know you never promised anything, that this is temporary. I know you're trying to make up for things with your daughter through me, but I also know what I feel for you is real." Richard stayed silent, wrestling with his own emotions. "Do you think I'm confusing gratitude with love?" Jennifer asked. "I don't know," Richard admitted. "Maybe. Gratitude can be a powerful feeling. And you? What do you feel for me?" Richard took so long to answer that Jennifer thought he wouldn't speak at all. "I feel like you've taught me to be a better person," he finally said. "I feel like taking care of you has given me a purpose I haven't had in years. I feel like I love you. But I also know you need to be sure you're making the right choice, for you and for the baby. And maybe the right choice is trying to build a family with the child's biological father." Jennifer got up and walked to the window, staring at the busy street below. "What if the right choice is staying with you? Then I'll be the happiest man in the world," Richard answered, stepping closer behind her. "But I need you to be certain. I need you to know you're choosing out of love, not security or gratitude." Jennifer turned to face him. "How can I be sure?" "By talking to Tyler a few more times, getting to know the man he's become, seeing if you can forgive him and start over." "And you'll wait?" "I'll wait as long as it takes." That night, Jennifer dreamed of two different paths for her life. In one, she was with Tyler, raising their child together, struggling to rebuild trust. In the other, she was with Richard, building an unconventional but loving and supportive family. When she woke up, she still didn't know which path to choose. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The days that followed were filled with constant tension. Richard tried to act normally, but Jennifer could see how tense he became whenever the phone rang, as if he expected it to be Tyler setting up another meeting. Tyler, on the other hand, called every day, always respectful, always asking about her and the baby's health, never pressuring, but making it clear he was there, waiting for an answer. It was during one of these calls that he made an unexpected request. "Jen, can I ask you something?" "What is it?" "I'd like to go with you to the next doctor's appointment. I want to hear our son's heartbeat." Jennifer looked at Richard, who was pretending to read the newspaper in the living room. "Tyler, I don't know if... Please, I'm not asking for a decision about us. I just want to know my son before he's born." Jennifer sighed. "Okay, the next appointment is Thursday at 2 in the afternoon." "Thank you, Jen. Thank you so much." After hanging up, Richard folded the newspaper and looked at her. "He's going to the appointment?" "Yes. Do you think it's wrong?" "No," Richard lied. "I think it's his right." By Thursday, Jennifer was nervous. It was the first time Tyler and Richard would meet, and she didn't know how it would go. Richard offered not to go, but she asked him to come. "Why do you want me there too?" he asked. "Because you've been to every appointment with me. Because I need both of you there." At the hospital, the situation was awkward. Tyler arrived with flowers and chocolates for Jennifer. Richard came with the folder where he kept all her test results and prescriptions. "You must be Richard," Tyler said, extending his hand. "I'm Tyler, the baby's father." "Nice to meet you," Richard replied, shaking his hand. During the appointment, the differences between the two men were impossible to ignore. Richard knew every detail of Jennifer's medical history, the doctor's name, and remembered the recommendations from the last visit. Tyler was moved hearing the baby's heartbeat for the first time, but was clearly lost when it came to practical matters. "Her blood pressure is still normal," said Dr. Miller. "The baby is growing well. He should be born in about 3 more weeks." 3 weeks, Tyler murmured, as if he couldn't believe it. "Yes," the doctor agreed. "By the way, Jennifer, have you decided where you want to deliver?" "Right here at the hospital, as we planned," she replied. "Great. Richard, you're still the emergency contact." Richard looked at Jennifer, then at Tyler. "If Jennifer wants." "Of course I do," she said quickly. After the appointment, the three stood outside the hospital, no one quite sure what to say. "Jen," Tyler finally said, "can I take you to lunch? There are some things I'd like to talk about." Jennifer looked at Richard. "Go ahead," he said. "I need to get back to the office anyway." "Are you sure?" "I am." Richard said goodbye and left, leaving Jennifer alone with Tyler. She watched him get into his car and drive away, feeling a tightness in her chest. "He seems like a good man," Tyler commented. "He is," Jennifer agreed. "The best I've ever known." "Do you love him?" The question caught Jennifer off guard. She had expected Tyler to avoid the subject. "Why do you want to know?" "Because I need to understand what I'm up against." Jennifer stared at him. "You're not up against anything, Tyler. This isn't a competition." "Isn't it? Then explain it to me. Why haven't you given me an answer about giving us a chance?" They walked to a nearby restaurant in silence. Only after ordering did Jennifer respond, "Because I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid you'll disappear again when things get hard. Afraid your change isn't real. Afraid of hurting Richard. And afraid of finding out you don't love me anymore." Jennifer nodded. "That too." Tyler pushed his food around without appetite. "Jen, can I tell you something I realized in therapy?" "Of course." "I realized I never loved you the right way. I loved the idea of you, how you made me feel special, how you took care of me, but I never loved you as a whole person, with flaws and strengths, with your own dreams and fears." Jennifer was surprised by his honesty. "And now?" "Now I'm learning what real love is, and I know it might be too late for us. But I want to try, if you'll let me." "Tyler." "Don't answer me now," he interrupted. "Just think about what I said." That night, Jennifer came home and found Richard making dinner. "How was lunch?" "Confusing," she replied, using her usual word. Richard smiled sadly. "Seems like everything's been confusing lately." "Richard, can I ask you something?" "Always." "If you were a woman, pregnant, and had to choose between the baby's biological father and a man who took you in when you needed help, what would you do?" Richard stopped stirring the food and turned to her. "I think I'd choose whoever makes me feel safest and most loved, no matter who the biological father is. And if the person who makes you feel safe and loved was 20 years older. The age gap only matters if you let it. What if that person was helping you out of guilt, trying to make up for past mistakes?" Richard was quiet for a long moment. "I think it started that way," he admitted. "But it's not about guilt or redemption anymore. It's about you. How you changed my life, how you made me want to be a better person." "Richard, Jen, I need to tell you something. No matter what you decide, I want you to be happy. If that means being with Tyler, I'll support you. It'll hurt, but I'll support you." Jennifer stepped closer and took his hands. "And if it means being with you? Then I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that choice." They held each other's gaze, the air electric between them. Richard raised his hand and gently touched Jennifer's face. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too," she replied. Richard leaned in to kiss her but stopped inches from her lips. "I can't," he said. "Not until you've made your decision." "Why?" "Because I don't want to influence your choice. It has to be completely yours." Jennifer felt her eyes well up. "What if I've already decided?" "Have you?" Richard held his breath. "What is it?" Before Jennifer could answer, a sharp contraction doubled her over in pain. "Ow!" she cried, clutching her stomach. "What's wrong?" Richard rushed to steady her. I think the baby's coming." Richard checked the clock. It was only 7 on a Tuesday evening. "But you still have 3 weeks left." "Seems like he doesn't want to wait," Jennifer said as another contraction hit. Richard grabbed the bag they'd packed weeks ago and helped Jennifer to the car. The whole way to the hospital, he held her hand while driving, trying to keep her calm. "It's okay," he repeated. "Everything will be fine." "Richard," Jennifer said between contractions, "if anything happens to me, nothing will happen. But if it does, promise you'll take care of my baby." "I promise," he said, his voice thick. "But it won't come to that." At the hospital, everything moved quickly. The contractions came one after another, and the doctor said the baby was in a hurry. "Do you want me to call Tyler?" Richard asked as the nurses prepped Jennifer for delivery. "Later," she answered, squeezing his hand. "Right now, I just need you here." The delivery lasted 4 hours. Richard remained by Jennifer's side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her sweat, offering words of encouragement. "I can see the head now," the doctor announced. "One more push, Jennifer." "I can't," she cried, exhausted. "Yes, you can," Richard said, looking into her eyes. "You're the strongest woman I know. You've got this." With one final effort, Jennifer pushed, and the baby was finally born, crying loud and healthy. "It's a boy," the doctor announced, placing the baby in his mother's arms. Jennifer looked at her son for the first time and began to cry with emotion. Richard was also crying without even realizing it. "He's perfect," she whispered. "He is," Richard agreed, gently touching the baby's tiny hand. "What will his name be?" the nurse asked. Jennifer looked at Richard. "Ethan," she said, "like the boy from the first story you ever told me." Richard smiled through his tears, remembering the conversation they'd had weeks ago about second chances and guardian angels. "Ethan Richard," she added, "if you'll allow it." Richard was so overwhelmed he couldn't speak. He simply nodded, holding her hand. Only then did Jennifer realize she had made her decision. And she'd made it a long time ago, really. She just hadn't had the courage to admit it to herself. When Tyler arrived at the hospital a few hours later, he found a scene that made him immediately understand Jennifer's choice. Richard was sitting in the chair beside the bed, holding Ethan in his lap while Jennifer rested. The baby was sleeping peacefully in his arms, and Richard gazed at him as if he were the most precious thing in the world. "Can I come in?" Tyler asked from the doorway. "Of course," Jennifer replied, waking up. Tyler approached the bed and looked at his son for the first time. "He's beautiful," he said, his voice breaking. "Would you like to hold him?" Richard asked, standing up. "May I?" Richard carefully placed Ethan in Tyler's arms. The baby stirred slightly but stayed asleep. "Hi, son," Tyler whispered. "I'm your dad." Jennifer's heart ached seeing the emotion on Tyler's face, but at the same time, she knew her decision was right. "Tyler," she said softly, "we need to talk." Tyler looked at her and saw in her eyes what he already knew in his heart. "You chose him." "I did." Tyler nodded, still holding Ethan. "Can I ask why?" "Because he showed me what it's like to be loved unconditionally. Because he was there when I needed him most. Because love isn't about who came first, but about who stays." Tyler kissed his son's forehead before handing him back to Richard. "I understand," he said. "I don't like it, but I understand." "Tyler, this doesn't mean you can't be part of Ethan's life. He needs to know his biological father." "You'd allow that?" Jennifer looked at Richard, who nodded. "Of course. Ethan deserves to know where he came from, to know his whole story." "And you, Richard," Tyler asked, "are you okay with me being part of your Son's life. Richard held Ethan close to his chest. Ethan isn't biologically mine, he said, but if Jennifer lets me, I'll love him as if he were. And I want him to know you, to know he has two men who love him in different ways. Tyler was silent for a moment, absorbing the words. Thank you, he finally said, for taking care of her when I couldn't, for taking care of my son, for being the man I didn't know how to be. Tyler. No, let me say this, he interrupted. I made a lot of mistakes. I left you when I should have stayed. I let my problems become more important than our family. But seeing the three of you like this, I can see Ethan will have what I never did. Parents who love each other and put him first. Jennifer reached out her hand to Tyler. You can still be part of this family too. In a different way, but it's possible. What do you mean? As an honorary uncle, Richard suggested. As someone Ethan will know he can always count on. Tyler shook Jennifer's hand and then Richard's. I'd really like that. In the days that followed, a new routine took shape. Richard had taken leave from work to help Jennifer with Ethan. Tyler visited twice a week, always bringing something for the baby, always respectful of the new family's dynamic. Elizabeth showed up once, clearly upset with how things had turned out. Richard, you've completely lost your mind, she said. You're going to raise another man's child, as if he were yours. I'm going to raise Ethan as my son because that's what he is. Richard replied firmly. And if that bothers you, you can stop coming here. What about the money you're spending on this? The plans we had to expand the business? The business can wait, my family can't. Elizabeth realized she had lost all influence over her ex-husband and left in a rage, promising they'd regret it. But her threats didn't affect the new family's happiness. Ethan grew strong and healthy. Jennifer recovered well from the birth and felt more secure in her decision with each passing day. Richard was a devoted father. He woke up early to help with feedings, changed diapers without complaint, and talked to Ethan as if the baby could understand every word. Do you regret it? Jennifer asked one night as they watched Ethan sleep in the crib Richard had set up in their room. Regret what? Finding me in that building, changing your whole life for us. Richard pulled her closer. Jen, meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. You gave me a family, a purpose, real love. How could I regret that? Even knowing Elizabeth is right about the money you're spending. Money means nothing if I have no one to share my life with. Jennifer nestled against his chest. I love you. I love you too. And I love Ethan as if he were my own blood. 6 months later, Richard and Jennifer married in a simple ceremony. Tyler was there holding Ethan during the vows. The small church was filled with people who had become family along the way. The medical team who cared for Jennifer, some neighbors from the building, Richard's employees who had grown fond of their story. Do you promise to love and care for each other and for Ethan in every moment of your lives? The priest asked. We do, they answered together. When they kissed, Ethan started crying as if protesting being left out. Everyone laughed, and Richard picked up his son, pulling him into the family hug. Life wasn't always easy after that. There were sleepless nights, financial worries, disagreements about parenting, but there was never any doubt about the love that held them together. Tyler truly became an uncle to Ethan. He visited regularly, brought gifts, told stories. When Ethan turned 3, it was Tyler who taught him to ride a bike. Daddy Richard, Daddy Tyler taught me, Ethan shouted, running to show off his new skill. I saw, champ, Richard said, hugging his son. Tyler walked over. He calls you Daddy Richard. And you, Daddy Tyler. I think Ethan understands he can have more than one dad. Thank you for letting this happen. Thank you for being here. Ethan's lucky to have so many people who love him. When Ethan turned 5, Jennifer discovered she was pregnant again. This time the baby was biologically Richard's, but to Ethan, she would simply be his little sister. I'm going to have a sister, he announced to everyone at school. The baby girl was born and named Emily, in honor of the daughter Richard had lost. Do you think she'd approve? Asked Jennifer, holding the baby. I think she'd be happy to know I finally learned how to be a good father. Years passed. Ethan grew up knowing his full story, how his mother had gotten pregnant, how she'd lived on the streets, how Richard found her and took care of her. There were never any lies or secrets. "Daddy Richard, why did you help Mommy that day?" Ethan asked when he was 8. "Because sometimes people need help, and when we can help, we should. Even if we don't know the person, especially if we don't, we never know when we might need a stranger's help too." Ethan grew up understanding the value of kindness and second chances. He became a generous boy, always willing to share his toys and help his classmates. Emily grew up hearing the story of how her parents met. To her, it was natural to have an older brother who had another father too. It was natural for Tyler to come to birthday parties and family gatherings. "Our family is different," she remarked one day at 4 years old. "Different how?" asked Richard. "We have more love than fits in just one house." Richard and Jennifer exchanged a glance and smiled. Emily had perfectly summed up what they'd built together. When Ethan turned 10, Tyler married a woman who had also faced hardships in life. Ethan was the ring bearer, and Emily was the flower girl. "Now I have 2 families," Ethan said proudly. "And we have you," replied Tyler's new wife, hugging the boy she considered a stepson in her heart. Richard built a social business, inspired by his family's story. It helped women in vulnerable situations re-enter the workforce. Jennifer became his partner, using her experience to guide other women. The project grew and helped hundreds of families over the years. Richard always said it was his way of repaying the luck he'd had. "Luck?" Jennifer would question. "You saved me." "No, Jen, we saved each other." The end of the story. Dear listeners, what an emotional story we've just experienced together. Now we want to know, what did you think of Jennifer and Richard's journey? Do you believe love can blossom from the most difficult situations? Share your comments with your own stories about second chances. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming tales.